Today we're gonna make loaded cookies and talk about joy. When I was a kid, one of my favorite meals out was a certain pizza chain buffet because they had a soft serve ice cream bar. I loved going up at the end of my meal to pick whatever kind of soft serve I wanted. Sometimes I might have put all of the toppings that were available, or sometimes I kind of picked and chose what might be a good flavor combination. The possibilities were endless. I want you to think about what that might have looked like for you. Maybe it was getting to pick out as many 5-cent candies as you could at the store for $1, or maybe it was one of those frozen yogurt bars that had tons of toppings that used to be around. Whatever kind of opportunities you had to let your little imagination run wild when it came to flavor and food. I want you to take that energy into our bake today. We're gonna tap into our inner child, talk about the concept of joy, and put as much happiness as we can into our cookies. You're gonna really wanna consider what kind of flavor combination you want for your cookies. Maybe you have a specific flavor you've always really liked, but no one's making it right now, or you're not sure where to find it. Maybe there's something you can think of that brings you a happy childhood memory or makes you think of your family or your culture. Or maybe because you have this chance right now to make literally whatever you want without worrying whether it's going to be weird or taste gross, maybe you're going to make the strangest cookie you can think of. Whatever you think makes sense for you. I wanted to show you a couple different kind of flavor ideas that I was thinking of, as well as maybe a couple different techniques for how you can make your cookies really loaded. So I've come up with 3 different ones that I'm gonna try, and we're gonna see how it goes. So first, I have kind of a movie theater mix with popcorn, licorice, chocolate chips, and little rainbow sprinkles. So we're gonna put all of this into some of the cookies. I have a bit of pistachio paste chilling in the freezer because I want to put that in the center of a cookie and roll it up. Roll it in some of this scented sugar that I have. And the pistachio paste is just chilling in the freezer right now so that it doesn't leak out of the cookies when they bake. And then the last one is my weird combo. I have dill pickle cashews and chocolate chips. This might be really gross, but I really like these cashews, and I wanted to see if there was a way to kind of make like a sweet and savory combo and just experiment. So we'll see how that one goes. There's a lot of different reasons that baking can bring us joy. Often baked goods carry a sense of comfort, a happy memory, or they can even just look joyful. I mean, think of a rainbow sprinkle donut. Sometimes it makes you happy just to look at it. Second, trying and succeeding at something new usually can bring us a lot of happiness and excitement. I know when I try to succeed at a brand new skill, and I do, I feel really proud of myself, it boosts my self-confidence, and it makes me really happy. Just think of the last time that you learned something new and what that might have felt like for you. For me lately, that's been growing a thriving sourdough starter and scoring bread with fun designs. Second, I want to tell you about something that I've learned recently when it comes to happiness and the things that we have in our lives. There's this thing that can go on called hedonic adaptation, where we start to get used to the big and flashy things that we might think might make us happy. So think of how exciting it feels to buy a new house, or buy a new car, or a new fun toy, or any of those big kind of life purchases that we might save up for, thinking that it's gonna make us really happy. Unfortunately, after we make that purchase and we get used to the thing, usually that happiness sort of dies off and we don't feel as much happiness or joy towards that item anymore, which usually means then we're kind of chasing for the next thing. And especially as life gets more expensive now, sometimes we can't really afford to have our source of joy come from acquiring new things. With the idea of hedonic adaptation, then we take a look at experiences. So they found that experiences often bring more joy to people because they can look back on the memory of the thing that brought them joy and still often feel some sort of happiness or joy thinking back on the experience itself. So it's sort of like a little happiness bank where you can make withdrawals later and you still feel some sort of happiness and joy thinking back on that experience. When it comes to baking, the joy can be experiential. Sure, we might be able to buy things like a fun stand mixer or other fun items like cute bowls or baking pans or things like that. But for the most part, baking is an experience. So we can make little deposits into our experience bank and think later about the time when we nailed a new skill, shared a new recipe with someone that they really loved, or just again had that time to ourselves. So today we're gonna have an experience together where we make these loaded cookies, and I want you to think about how this might serve you later when you can look back on this time with fondness. Let's get started. All right, I'm gonna use my stand mixer today to mix my cookies, but if you don't have one of these and you have a hand mixer instead, or if you have nothing at all, you can mix everything by hand. It might take a little bit more effort just to make sure everything's all mixed together, but that's no problem. Because I have access to a stand mixer, I'm gonna use it today just to make things easy. So first things first, we're gonna preheat our oven, which is to 350. So I'm gonna do that right now, and then we're gonna get going on putting our ingredients together. So first thing we wanna do is make sure our dry ingredients are all combined in a small bowl. I guess not all of our dry ingredients, our flour, our baking soda, and salt. We are going to do 2 1/4 cups of flour. And as you might know, if you've taken other courses from me, you could be more precise by spooning the flour into your cup, but I usually don't do it that way. I usually just scoop. But you can be as precise and professional as you want, or as casual as you want, because maybe that's part of the fun. So that's 2 cups. We've got a 1/4 cup. And then we need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. And a teaspoon of baking soda. Just gonna give those a little stir so that everything's combined. And then we're putting this off to the side for now. One thing I did forget to mention is I always like to have all of my ingredients out and handy before you get started, because there's been many times where I've been caught in the middle of a recipe realizing I don't have eggs or I don't have butter or milk, and then I'm running out to the store with half of a recipe done. So it's best if you put everything out ahead of time, have everything organized so that you're not running out in the middle, feeling stressed or like you don't know where things are. All right, now we're gonna beat our butter and sugars together. I pre-softened my butter because it does need to be a bit soft. We don't want it melted, just soft enough to beat. So I'm going to put this in my mixer. If If you forget to leave your butter out on the counter to soften, which I often do, you can microwave it a little bit. You just want to make sure it doesn't get too soft. We're going to do 3/4 cup of brown sugar. My set of cups doesn't have a 3/4, so I'm just going to do 3 1/4. And then the same with the granulated sugar. We're going to beat this together until the butters and sugar are blended. Oh, just kidding. We need the vanilla too. We're going to do 1 teaspoon of vanilla. Now we're going to beat everything together. Okay, it's mostly mixed up, so I am going to just clean up my beater as well as the bowl before I add in the eggs. And we're gonna do our eggs one at a time. So I'm gonna crack it on my counter so that I don't wind up with eggs in my batter. Or eggshells, I mean. Of course I want eggs in my batter. And so we're just gonna do a little mix before we add in the second one. Number 2. Make sure that's all combined. Again, I'm going to clean up my beater and my bowl to make sure we didn't miss any spots before I add in the rest of the dry ingredients. Now we're going to gradually add in our flour mixture just to make sure that everything doesn't puff out into the air, and just kind of do a little bit at a time and mix, a little bit at a time and mix. So I think I did about 1/3 there. You don't have to be too precise, it's just so you're not overloading your mix. And again, it doesn't have to be fully combined before you put more in. So I'm just gonna add a bit more as it mixes, probably about another 1/3. And then our last bit. Now we will make sure everything's mixed in because the whole flour mixture is in the bowl. I'm gonna do a quick cleanup because I got flour on here and on the top of the beater that I wanna make sure is in here. Again, clean some of this up and make sure we're not missing any floury spots, because I've done that too before, where there's a bunch of dry stuff at the bottom of the bowl that the beater just didn't quite get at. And then my last few cookies are kind of crumbly, which we don't really want. I think we're good here. I'll just clean up my beater and then we will start doing some add-ins. If you're not someone who's squeamish about raw egg, this can also be a fun part. Where you tap into your inner child, because you can eat a bit of cookie dough off the beater to clean it up. You could even sneak a little bit of dough out of the bowl. Again, whatever kind of experience you can make out of this process to make it more fun, more childlike, and bring you as much joy as you need. Who needs to think about adult things like maybe getting yourself sick from eating raw eggs? I know I don't. I always eat the cookie dough and nothing bad has happened to me yet, knock on wood. I have separated my cookie dough into 3 bowls. You don't have to do this. I just did because I'm making 3 different flavor combinations. You can join me and make as many as you want, but if you just have one, add in your mix-ins now. You can do it in your stand mixer if that was what you were using. You can do it by hand, whatever makes sense. I'm just gonna do my mix-ins by hand because I'm separating them out into 3 different flavors and wanted to split everything up. But again, you do you, whatever you're doing with your flavors so that it makes sense. I'm gonna start with my little movie theater flavor. So again, I have popcorn, licorice, chocolate chips, and some rainbow sprinkles. I'm gonna pop that all into 1/3 of my batter and just mix it in by hand with a spatula. Honestly, this is already kind of making me happy just by looking at it because it looks kind of fun and also weird. I'm very curious to see how this licorice bakes. It might be pretty gross, but this is the point, is we're experimenting, we're seeing what we can come up with. And if you've taken my course on high standards and perfectionism, you will know that part of my personal baking journey is always to try to let go of my tendencies of wanting everything to be perfect and just going with the flow. So for me, part of this experience today is experimenting with weird flavors and seeing what happens. And if something burns or tastes gross, it is what it is, and I'm just going to call it a lesson that we tried something and it didn't work. So this one looks kind of fun. It's nice and rainbow, and we'll see how that goes. It actually kind of reminds me of cookie dough that you might purchase as cookie dough, like as a snack. It's very happy looking. Next, we are going to do my dill pickle cashew and chocolate chip. This one, again, might be super weird, but I also think there's a possibility that it could be really good. I like sweet and salty at the same time. I'm a big fan of actually potato chips in my cookies, along with like chocolate or any of those sorts of things. And dill pickle is having a moment right now, which I am fully here for because I like all of the dill pickled flavored things. This one visually is less happy looking, but I think this might be the secret winner. Again, I could be totally wrong, but we'll see. Finally, I'm gonna show you a little bit of a different technique, which I think is fun when we're doing a loaded cookie, is that you can stuff your cookies. I often do this with like a chocolate at Christmas. So different flavored Hershey Kisses, you can roll the dough into a ball around them. I have some pistachio paste that I have been keeping, and I put it in the freezer so that hopefully it won't leak out while we bake. Again, it could happen. But you can do this with any other sort of like nut butter, peanut butter, Nutella, anything that you think might be good. So I just kind of put some of my pistachio paste in the middle. I'm gonna roll my dough around it and try to cover it up as much as possible. Give it a little roll in my hands, which I think is always fun and experiential to actually get to be tactile. And then to add a little bit of extra flavor to this one, I have what's called a summer fruit sugar. This is just from like a local spice shop. So it's some sugar and different spices. And I'm just gonna roll my little ball in that so that it's coated in the sugar and we get a bit of a different flavor profile. So this one should be fun to see how that turns out too. I'm gonna keep rolling these and I will meet you in a few minutes when all of my cookies are done and ready to go in the oven. I have filled my cookie sheets. I have a few of each flavor and we will see how they bake. And I just used a regular spoon to spoon out my cookie dough. Some people use cookie scoops or ice cream scoops. I have a cookie scoop and honestly I don't really like it. I find it gets really sticky. So tried and true, I just use a spoon and my fingers, clean fingers. And you can make these as big or as little as you want, just noting that bake time will be different depending on how big you make them. Some of my pistachio cookies are a bit bigger just because I needed more dough to cover the pistachio paste. And then these ones are just kind of spoon sized, I guess. But we'll make sure that we check on them throughout the bake to make sure that they're not burning or cooking too quickly, or that we're adding more time as needed. These are both now gonna go in the oven. I try to offset them a little bit like this on the racks so that everything kind of gets even heat. Some recipes even call for switching them halfway through. So as long as you're just kind of keeping an eye on them and seeing how it goes. The recipe calls for them to bake for 9 to 11 minutes, but as you might know if you've worked with me before, I always like to take a minute or two off just to make sure I'm checking on them before it goes too far, because you can always add more time, you can't take any away. So these are gonna go in the oven. I'm gonna set it for about 7 minutes and we will check on them at that point. One more way that I want to talk to you while our cookies are baking about practicing joy in baking is by thinking about gratitude. So we can have gratitude for the people who got our ingredients to us, whether that's people who grew or processed or delivered the ingredients that was able to get us here to this moment to savor this time for ourselves. We can savor the moment of eating a cookie, being mindful about all of that we did to create it, and the fact that we're having an enjoyable experience. Savoring a moment or experience can help us also to have that little bit of extra experience in our baking that we can put in that little happiness bank for later, so that it's not just a blip of a moment that goes by where we did this thing and then forgot about it. We can also practice gratitude with our baking by sharing it with others. This is one of my favorite ways to enjoy baking. I don't like to eat a ton of it, not because I don't enjoy it, but because I really think that it feels better when it's shared with others. So if you are feeling grateful for someone in your life, maybe you can share your cookies with them. I'm sure they will feel good. You'll share a moment together. It'll make the experience more enjoyable. And again, we're putting just that little bit extra in our happiness bank. Not everyone shows gratitude or care in the same way. It doesn't have to be effusive or showy. You don't have to make a little perfect social media worthy box or display of cookies. We can literally just share a moment with a friend. And even when we're thinking about all of the people that got us this ingredients, got us to this moment, we don't have to ignore everything else that's going on in our life. We do not want to promote toxic positivity. It's not about making everything else small to make this moment big. It's just about finding those little extra parts where we can savor the experience, create more joy, so that later when we look back and reflect on it, it just has that little bit of extra glow or power to it. The last thing to think about is that we can receive gratitude from others when we share our gifts. I also read this idea that I really liked, that we find happiness when we can share who we are and share our gifts with other people in a way that helps us to feel more connected to others. So when we bake something and we share it with another person, whether we gift it to them or again, we share that moment with them, we are really creating that much more of an experience that we can really take something away from. Nothing makes me feel warm and fuzzy than when I bake something for other people and I get to watch them enjoy it. I really did find though at first when I was sharing myself and sharing my baking with other people that I really struggled to receive thanks or compliments. I often tried to brush it off as, oh, it's no big deal, or, you know, this recipe didn't turn out the way I wanted it to. I could have done it better, or just like, oh, stop. But what I really have been trying to do lately is actually just receiving the gratitude and the compliment, because again, that connects us more and I think helps to fill our soul. So that's going to be my challenge to you as you continue on with your joy in baking experience, is receiving gratitude from others if you choose to share. So rather than saying things like, oh, they're gross, or they didn't turn out the way I wanted, or I could have done this better, just say, thank you, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. And so now we wait for our cookies to be finished and see how they turned out. Okay, my cookies are out of the oven. They look pretty good. I checked in on them at 7 minutes and 9 minutes, and I wound up going to the full 11 because they were looking a little soft prior to that. So now I'm just gonna let these cool off for a minute or two before I move them onto a cooling rack and before I sample and see which one turned out the best, if any. I also do have some leftover dough from 2 of the flavors that I'll just repeat the same process. Now I know that 11 minutes is what's working for my oven today, along with this dough. So I'll just start with 11 minutes this time, maybe even 10. And again, just kind of check on them, but I'm not gonna do 7 because now I know that they need longer. Something else I forgot to mention earlier, which I think is in your workbook, is that I like to use silicone mats with my cookies. At the very least, if you don't have a silicone mat, I would really recommend parchment paper. It just helps to make sure the cookie bottoms don't get too brown. That's my preference, at least. I like a soft, chewy cookie. If you like a crispy cookie, have at it. I wouldn't use tin foil or anything though. And then the silicone mats or parchment just also make for really easy cleanup. So I'm gonna let these cool for about 2 minutes, put them on a cooling rack to finish cooling off, and then we will taste test. All of my cookies have had sufficient time to cool, so I'm not gonna burn myself when I do a taste test. And I think I'm gonna try at least 1 bite of each. I'm gonna try and get the perfect bite where it might have all of the flavors. So I'm gonna start with the dill pickle, cashew, and chocolate one. So they're nice and soft. They break apart really easily. This bite has both cashews and chocolate, so we'll see how it goes. I actually wouldn't say the dill pickle is overly strong. I actually kind of wish there was a little bit more dill flavor in there because it kind of just tastes like a chocolate cookie with nuts. Maybe if I took a few more bites, there might be other bites with more dill pickle flavor, but I actually think if I was gonna do this again, I would maybe try to add some dill pickle seasoning in, which I have, and I thought about it and I didn't do it. So maybe next time that's the trick. Next, I'm gonna try my movie theater cookie. This one actually does make me really happy just looking at it. It's really fun looking, which I like. And again, just gives me a bit of that inner child experience. I don't know about you, but when I go into a bakery or a coffee shop that has like fun pastries, sometimes I'm just really drawn to this stuff that looks like bright and fun and happy, which I think this does. So that's kind of cool. And again, I'm gonna try to just get a bite with everything in it. I'm not sure if this has licorice. I might have to try another bite, but it does have the popcorn and chocolate and sprinkles. That one's yummy. There's some licorice. It stayed a little bit chewy, which is an interesting experience. I'm actually just gonna grab this little piece of licorice here because I wanna make sure I got it. It's getting stuck in my teeth a little. The salt from the popcorn's not necessarily there, but overall, I like this one a lot. And it's actually kind of interesting how the base cookie dough can taste so different between two different flavors. So the last one now is my pistachio one with the summer fruit sugar. This one's kind of fun because it is filled. That one's yummy. I think it's my favorite. The sugar made it kind of crispy on the outside while still being chewy, which is really nice. So I think overall, I'm very happy because none of these were an abject failure. They all taste really different, which I think is super fun. So if you just did one flavor this time, I would actually maybe encourage you to experiment because I had a lot of fun with this. They all taste really different. They all taste pretty good. And it was fun to experiment. This is the first time that I've really kind of like made up my own flavors, and all of them turned out really well. So again, that's something now that's bringing me joy. I tried something new with each of these flavors. They worked out. I might make this again, honestly. I have some more pistachio paste and that was super tasty. And now the fun part is I'm gonna get to share these with other people and see if they agree. Maybe they will not agree that these were a hit, so we'll see. I hope you enjoyed what you made today. I hope it brought out a bit of your inner child. And I hope you keep experimenting with things that are fun. And again, just really savor the moment, savor the experience. Put a little deposit in your happiness bank that you can look back on later. And again, maybe just practice a little bit of gratitude for the fact that you took time for yourself today to do something that was different. And yeah, maybe share it with others. I will see you soon.